The storm that night felt like something ripped straight from a Washington thriller. Violent winds, sky-splitting lightning, and rain that slapped the ground like bullets. But inside a black bulletproof SUV rolling through the wealthy suburbs of Harlington, the man behind the wheel barely noticed the chaos outside. Alexander Reese Caldwell, America's favorite billionaire, a media darling, tech mogul, and the man almost guaranteed to become the country's next president, was minutes away from his biggest moment. He had spent years crafting his image, the self-made genius who rose from nothing to reshape the American economy. News anchors worshipped him. Voters adored him. By morning, every major network would be broadcasting his presidential announcement. He was built for power, born for it. But in the span of 10 seconds, everything he dreamed of would be drenched in blood. The storm beat so hard against the windshield that the world looked like smeared watercolor. Alexander leaned forward, squinting as he turned down a quiet residential street, a shortcut to avoid the media traps near the convention center. His driver had gone home hours earlier, and Alexander, always hungry for symbolic gestures, wanted to arrive alone. That's when something small shot into the road. A kid, a little boy, maybe 8, maybe 9, running through the rain, chasing a cheap plastic toy car rolling onto the pavement. Alexander slammed the brakes. Tires screamed. The SUV slid. Then, thud. Not loud, not sharp, just final. Alexander's heart stopped. His throat closed. He jumped out of the SUV into the pouring rain. The child lay crumpled on the asphalt, soaked, tiny, fragile. His chest rose only by a thread. His eyes fluttered like a dying flame. Still alive, but fading. Alexander dropped to his knees. Hey kid, stay with me. But his hands shook too hard to touch the boy. A coldness crawled up his spine. A scream tore through the storm. A woman's scream. A mother's scream. Alexander froze. If she saw him, if anyone saw him, his dream of the White House would die tonight. His entire life's image, America's golden billionaire, would unravel. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Gregory Vance, his oldest friend, his fixer, the one man who owed him everything and had nowhere else to turn. Greg was drowning in debt. His mother needed a surgery he couldn't afford, and Alexander had always dangled hope like a carrot. He answered immediately. Greg, I need you, now. 10 minutes later, headlights cut through the rain. Greg rushed over, hoodie soaked, face pale as he saw the child. Jesus, Alex, this kid is... Alexander grabbed his arm. It was an accident, but if this gets out, it's over. Everything I've built, everything I'm supposed to become, gone. Greg swallowed. Then what do you want me to do? Alexander looked him straight in the eyes. You take the fall. Say you hit the boy. I'll clear every debt, fund your mother's surgery, give your family a life they never dreamed of. You'll be protected. Greg's face twisted. Shock, fear, morality colliding. But then he thought about his mother's failing kidneys, his father's mortgage, his younger sister's tuition. Slowly, painfully, he nodded. I'll do it. Minutes later, police sirens blared. Neighbors ran out, and through the chaos, a woman sprinted barefoot across the street, screaming her son's name. Professor Elena Marquez, a brilliant new scholar the nation had recently celebrated. A woman whose life revolved around a boy who now lay cold on a stretcher. She collapsed as paramedics lifted him away. And as the ambulance sped off, Alexander slipped unseen into the shadows of his own lie. The boy died 2 hours later. Elena died too, just in a different way. The moment her son took his final breath, Something in her cracked, split, and spiraled into darkness. Her once sharp mind, capable of rewriting scientific theories, drowned in grief and trauma. And when police announced that Gregory Vance confessed to killing her son, she attached her hatred to him like a lifeline. Still, she wanted justice, the kind any American mother would demand. She pushed the case to court. She spoke boldly. She presented evidence, inconsistencies, questions. But Gregory had something stronger than truth behind him. He had Alexander. The billionaire pulled every political string, bought every silence, twisted every law. The judge dismissed the charges. No punishment, no accountability, no answers. Elena broke completely. Outside the courthouse, Gregory walked past her with a smug smirk, one Alexander told him to practice. He leaned close to Elena and whispered, "Lady, the kid's gone. Move on." Her scream echoed across the city. Something snapped inside her. She jumped into her car, hands trembling. Gregory laughed and waved her off like she was insane. Then she hit him. One quick acceleration, one collision fueled by grief, trauma, and unbearable pain. Gregory flew into the air, and for the first time since her son died, Elena felt nothing. Not guilt, not fear, just a hollow echo where her heart once was. She was arrested immediately. Handcuffs clamped around her wrists like cold snakes. During her trial, Alexander sat comfortably in the front row, face cold, eyes unreadable. He testified that Gregory was a loyal friend, a harmless man, a victim of a grieving mother's rage. Elena was sentenced to 7 years. She didn't beg for mercy. She didn't cry. She just stared straight at Alexander, her gaze sharp, broken, and haunting. But what she didn't know was that Gregory Vance had a son of his own, 12-year-old Mason Vance. Quiet, angry, muttering at his father's funeral. "When she comes out, I'll avenge my dad." He didn't know the truth. No one did. Not yet. Elena spent 7 years in a cell where time moved like mud. But grief sharpened her. Pain hardened her. The brilliant professor found pieces of herself again, just enough to remember the promise she'd made. "I will find the truth." When she was finally released, the world had changed. Alexander Reese Caldwell was now the leading presidential candidate. Standing on stages, shaking hands, selling himself as America's savior. But the universe has a way of bending toward truth, slowly, painfully, but always. It started with Mason. He saw Alexander on TV one night, that same man who testified, that same man who defended his father's innocence. Something about his speech triggered a memory, a small detail he'd overheard years ago. Then came a journalist, a young investigative reporter named Dana Brooks, who believed Elena had been wronged. She dug into the old police files looking for holes, and she found one. Traffic camera footage. Footage that had been mysteriously deleted, except a small fragment survived on a backup drive. And in that blurred footage, you could see the child running into the road, the billionaire's USV, the billionaire stepping out, the billionaire calling someone, and then, 7 minutes later, Greg's old Toyota arriving. Dana brought the footage to Elena. When Elena watched the last surviving seconds of her son's life, she fell to the floor, sobbing, not with grief, but with rage she had carried for too long. Dana asked, "What do you want to do?" Elena wiped her tears. Her voice was calm, steady, and terrifying. "I want America to know the truth." The story exploded like a bomb. Leaks, audio recordings, Greg's old messages pleading with Alexander for guidance, hospital reports, witness statements, everything poured into the public eye. And for the first time in his life, Alexander Reese Caldwell couldn't control the narrative. Americans were furious. Politicians abandoned him. Courthouse steps flooded with protesters. Networks ran the story non-stop. Mason Vance, the boy who once vowed revenge, watched the truth unravel and felt the hatred drain out of him. He went to see Elena, not to threaten her, but to apologize, tears streaking down his face. Elena held him. They forgave each other, two people broken by the same monster. And finally, the justice system turned its gaze toward the man who had twisted it for so long. Alexander was arrested live on national television, charged with conspiracy, obstruction, witness manipulation, and accessory to murder. As he was dragged through a mob of furious citizens, Elena stood in the crowd, not smiling, not vengeful, just free. She whispered to herself, "My son can rest now." And in the chaos of flashing cameras and shouting crowds, America finally saw the truth. The man they almost elected was a killer. The mother they had locked away was a victim. And justice, real, overdue justice, had finally arrived.
Subscribe to Casey Tales for more stories that touch the soul.